Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash. And double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone that taught us this truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful electors out there listening, learning, and or teaching. Shalom to you all. All right, so as you can see by the depiction that I got pulled up here, we're going to be talking about the Four Horsemen, all right, spoken of in Revelation, the 6th chapter. Okay, so we're going to go into that breakdown through the Spirit here. All right, this is Revelation chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, 'Come and see.'" All right, so what are these seals? The seals are the mysteries of the scriptures. All right, and for that, we're going to grab a precept here. All right, we're going to go into Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verse 9. It reads, "Keep therefore the words," Salakia, 29 and 29. It says, "The secret things belong unto Yahweh our power, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of his law." You see, so the Lord, Yahushua, being the Lamb, he opened up the mysteries of the scriptures to us, man. All right, and that's why we're able to understand and break these scriptures down. All right, so going back to Revelation chapter 6, we're going to go to verse 2. It says, "And I saw and behold a white horse." Okay, and I'm going to read it and then I'll break it down. It says, "And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." All right, so the horse represents power, and the white represents purity. Okay, because Yahushua being pure, being perfect, all right, and then coming with power, because he's coming in what the world calls a so-called, a UFO. Okay, so that white horse is really talking about a giant fathership, what people would call a mothership, or UFO, or flying saucer. Yahushua is coming back in one of those. All right. So with that, we're going to read it again. It says, "And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow," right? Because bow is like, you could think about like a bow and arrow. It says, "And a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." Right? Because Yahushua is coming to make war with Esau and these other nations out here, man. All right? The Lord is coming to take the kingdom. Okay? And you could read about this same white horse in Revelation 19. We're going to go to verse 11. It says, "And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse." See, the same white horse. All right. "And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war." That's right, man. Yahushua is coming back, not to hand out hugs and kisses, but he's coming to make war, man. All right, like the scriptures say, if the evil that is sown in this world be not turned upside down, roughly paraphrasing, then cannot it come that which is made or sown with good. Okay, so this wicked world has to go down in order for the kingdom of heaven to be set up. So Yahushua is coming to make war. The scripture says there's a time for peace and there's a time for war. And when Yahushua returns, there's going to be a time for war. All right, because there ain't no saving Babylon, man. This place is finished. This place is so beyond wicked, man. It can't. There's no way to. There's no remedy, man. All right. But we'll continue reading here. It says, "His eyes was a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself." Right, and that's the name of Yahushua. Which a lot of people don't know that name, man. All right, very few people know the true name of the only begotten Son, which is Yahushua. All right. His eyes was a flame of fire, and his head were many crowns. Yeah, there were many crowns because, like I said, Yahweh Shai is coming to take down the rulers of this earth. Okay, starting with Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, and these other heathen nations, man. All right. And verse 13, it says, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of the Most High. That's right, man, because it's gonna be a bloody fight, man. And Yahweh Shai is gonna just utterly annihilate these other nations, man. But getting back into it, we're gonna go back to Revelation 6, and we're gonna go to verse 3. All right, it says, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. Okay, this red horse is talking about none other than Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Okay, which we say the so-called white man because he's not really white, right? Like we saw up here in the let's see, in the second verse, white represents purity, and the so-called white man is anything but pure, man. He's wicked. Okay, and they should really be called red, because if you look at their skin, it's not white, it's got a red tint to it. All right, which is that blood inside of them. They're translucent. They lost their pigmentation. Okay, and we're gonna get a precept to this real quick. We're gonna go into, let's go into Genesis 25 and 30 real quick. It says, and Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom, right? So this was the time when, basically Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for some red meat, some bloody red meat, okay? And so that's why he was called Edom, which is red. Okay, we're gonna go into the Hebrew real quick. Edom. All right, and it's Adam. Let's see. Yup, Adam. And what does it mean? Red. All right. Edom, right? And this also says Edomite, because whenever you see Edom or Esau, it's talking about the same thing. All right, but Edom's just going more into the color. Okay, so these are the red people. That's why it's the red horse. All right, so let's go back. Revelation 6 and 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. That's right, man. And that's going back also to Genesis 25. Let's get a precept to that. That great sword, or not 25, Genesis 27. All right. And we're going to go down to verse 38. It says, and Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. All right, so remember, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, and now came the time for the blessing, and Jacob supplanted Esau out of his blessing also, man. Okay, verse 39, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, because remember, the Jacob already received his blessing, so now Esau is going to get the, basically like a leftover blessing, which, he will be given power, which he has right now. Okay, but ultimately his blessing is inferior to our blessing, man. Okay, but nevertheless, we'll continue. It says, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. Verse 40, and by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. Right? Because, this is how Esau keeps rulership, is through his weaponry. okay, going out there and slaughtering. You could read Habakkuk chapter 2, and it talks about how Esau is not upright. He just goes around to other countries making war. All right, the scriptures talk about how he oppresses a man, even a man of his heritage. Okay, that's Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Okay, it says, by the sword shalt thou live and serve thy brother, because they ended up serving their brother Jake, which is the Israelites, us so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. They were serving us during the rulership of King David, King Solomon. And you also had the Byzantine Empire in Rome. Okay, when Jake took over Rome, the Edomites were in captivity also, and ultimately in the kingdom. They're going to be in captivity for 1,000 years. Okay. And it continues here in Genesis 27:40. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, because there's going to come a time, and we're in that time now, when the so-called white man rules the world. Okay, you had the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, now you got the American Empire. All right. It says that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck, right? So he broke the yoke from off his neck. So we don't have him in captivity right now, but he has us in captivity, right? And he's out here causing war with all these other nations, destroying the earth, okay, taking peace from the earth, right? Because it's constant wars with this devil in power, man. Okay, and who are the Edomites? The so-called white and Israeli race, man. Okay, because those people over there claiming to be us, they're simply Edomites of the tribe of Amalek, predominantly. All right. So back in Revelation 6:4, we'll read it one more time. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereupon to take peace from the earth, and they should kill one another, right? That's all the wars, all the murders that he's doing. And there was given unto him a great sword, right, man? I mean, there's just so many examples. I mean, you could look back to the transatlantic slave trade. You could look back to the Spanish conquest, how they damn near genocided the Native Americans here, and the shit they're doing to this day, man, poisoning the food and the water and the air, all right, trying to put chips in everybody, that's eventually what they're going to do. Okay, they're going to try to, chip the whole world. And, only the elect is not going to take that chip, man. But basically, this is that red horse that came to take peace from the earth, is Esau, Edom. So we're going to go to verse 5. It says, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. All right. And this black horse represents famine. All right. And it says, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Okay. So the pair of balances represents two things. All right. First is slavery. And the second thing is, the hardships and judgments that are coming. Okay. And, yeah, that's basically what it's going into. So we're going to go to verse 6. It says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine, right? So that's basically going into how, there's going to be famines, and it's going to cause the price of food to go up, all right? And then the part where it says, hurt not the oil and the wine, is basically talking about how this truth of ours, it's not going to be distorted, but it will enter into the heart of the elect, and the elect is going to be sealed. So see thou hurt not the oil and the wine, because you can remember that that precept that talks about, the virgins having oil in their lamps. Okay, that oil representing this truth. Right, you had the wise virgins and the foolish virgins, right? All right. Now let's get a quick precept to, let's see. You get a quick precept for this. We'll get 2nd Esdras. 16. We'll start at verse 17. It says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days, right? You know, because that's the prophet Esdras. He knows that through the reincarnation, he's going to be, you know, he's going to be alive during these times that he's prophesying about. You know, you could read the whole chapter, and it's going into, you know, these perilous times we're coming into. Verse 18, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine, you see, going into that black horse, and great death, right? That's part of them judgments. The beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? All right, and we'll continue reading. It says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Right, and that's going into how, you know, those victuals being cheap upon the earth, you know, you roughly paraphrasing, you know, things are going to look good because you can just go and buy an overabundance of, you know, you could buy water for cheap. You go to the store and buy, you know, cheap garbage food and feel like you're good because you could stock up your fridge. All right, but even then, these evils are going to be continuing to grow on the earth, man. You know, even though, you know, these things are going to be happening, people are going to, you know, a lot of people are going to stay proud. You know, a lot of people are going to continue to be wicked. All right, and they're not going to turn. All right, verse 21, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case, right? You know, just like I was saying, through the spirit, you know, they're gonna think they're all right because they can go order DoorDash or, you know, go to Walmart and buy, you know, buy a bunch of cheap snacks and shit. You know, like you could think about with these people who are on SNAP benefits, man. You know, getting endless food options to the point where they're obese. All right, they think they good, man, but even then, evils are continuing to increase, man. All right, it says, and even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. That's right, man. So it's gonna keep getting worse. All right, it's gonna continue to, you know, escalate from here. All right. Verse 22, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. Right, you're gonna have sword, you're gonna have famine. All right, it says, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted and the cities shall be cast down. Yeah, man. So hey, this is no joke. This is what's coming, man, and that's why we warn our people to repent. Okay, now is not the time to be, you know, in la la land, halfway asleep or fully asleep, you know. It's high time to awake out of sleep, Yasharella. All right, it's time to come back to your heritage, repent, and renew your mind, because, you know, when this stuff starts to happen, you're going to wish that you gathered the oil in your lamps. You're not going to know what's going on. You're going to be bugging out. You might remember, you know, one talking point here or there you might have overheard the Hebrew Israelites talking about. All right, but you know, it's not enough, man. You really have to, you know, immerse yourself in this truth. You know, that's the true baptism, man. You see, being immersed, when you immerse yourself in something, you're fully surrounded by it, man. It's like when you go underwater, you're submerged, right? You know, when you go to the pool, you don't grab a cup of water and just pour it over your head. You get in the pool, man. All right, get into this truth before it's too late. All right, so going back, Revelation 6 and verse 5, Salakia. We're at verse 6. Let's see. We'll go ahead and continue from there. We're going to go to verse 7. It says, and when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, come and see. And I looked and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed him. Right? We know that hell is the grave. and the grave followed him, because the horse it represents death. Okay, and we just read in Second Ezra how it says that, you know, let's see, let's get it again here. Yeah, Second Ezra 16:23, it says, "And the dead shall be cast out as dung," right? You know, it's just gonna be dead bodies everywhere, man. So, yeah, man. Back in Revelation 6:8, "And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." That's right, man. You know, you're gonna have wild animals eating people up. People gonna be put to death by the sword. You know, the modern day sword is the gun. Okay, the scriptures talk about how, you know, people are gonna break into people's houses because they're gonna be starving, right? That's them famines, and they're gonna be putting people to death just to get food out of your fridge, man. You know, right? Hunger, that's that famine. You know, death, the beasts of the earth. You know, wild animals out here. They're gonna trade places. You know, they're gonna be coming into the cities, man. You know, there's a lot of talk of blackouts. You know, when society ultimately collapses, all right, there's gonna be a lot of animals out here, man. You got them zoos. They're gonna have to get out. You know, the animals in the wild, they're gonna come over through, you know, all these dead bodies. You could just imagine all these dead bodies out here is gonna attract nothing but animals, man. You know, bears, lions, freaking everything, man. Wild dogs, birds, predatory birds, man. You know, you're gonna have to watch out, man. You're gonna be walking down the street and a freaking bird will nosedive and hit you in the head. You know, they got them birds that they dive down at 120 miles an hour. You know, a fucking bear, a serpent. You know, the scriptures talks about that in the Apocrypha, how you're gonna escape a bear or a lion, roughly paraphrasing, and a serpent will bite you. So it's gonna be a time of great death, man. Great death. And we're gonna grab a quick precept to that. But yeah, man, the judgment is gonna get worse, and ultimately it's gonna lead to that destruction, man. The thermonuclear destruction of America. You know, Yahweh's return. You know, so this death is gonna start and get worse and worse and worse. All right, Jeremiah 15:2. It says, "And it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, Whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, Thus saith Yahweh, such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword, and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for captivity to captivity," man. Yeah, so it's gonna be all type of judgments out here, man. All right, verse 3, "And I will appoint over them four kinds, saith Yahweh, the sword to slay, and dogs to tear, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy." You see? You know, it's going to be all type of death out here. Zechariah 14:12. Yeah. During this time of Jacob's trouble, there's going to be all type of death. And it's not just going to be Jake. It's going to be really everybody's trouble eventually, man. All these heathen nations too. Okay. And then ultimately, this death is going to lead to the final ultimate destruction, man. And I'm going to get that here in Zechariah 14:12. It says, "And this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth." And that's talking about that thermonuclear destruction of America, man. All right, countless missiles are going to land in this place and utterly destroy it off the face of the earth, man. Okay, and a lot of people are going to go out this way. 2/3 of you Jakes that don't want to repent, you're going to go out this way while you hold hands with Esau, Edom, your Lord. All right, you're going to all die together, man. You know, and that's what's going to happen. All right. Let's see. Yep, that's it. So that's pretty much it, man. That's all I wanted to go into today. Just a quick breakdown through the spirit of the Four Horsemen. All right. So with that, I want to finish by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Hakwadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us as truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful elect that's out there listening, learning, and or teaching. Shalom wa. Abad babal. Shalom.